You were never meant to be ordinary. You were never meant to blend in, to follow the script, to move through life on autopilot like the rest. There has always been something different about you, something unshakable, something undeniable. And now, you're starting to see it. The shift has begun. The old world, the old patterns, the illusions that once felt so real, they're falling apart before your very eyes. You are awakening, not just to the truth around you, but to the force within you. The power, the vision, the knowing. It was always there, waiting. You are not just another player in this game. You are the disruptor, the catalyst, the force that breaks cycles and shatters illusions. You are the one who sees beyond the surface, who feels the weight of what others ignore, who moves through this world like a storm wrapped in fire. And that is exactly why you stand out. You are not for everyone. Not everyone will understand you. Not everyone will accept you. And that's okay. Your path was never meant to be easy. Your energy was never meant to be tamed. The moment you stepped into your power, the world shifted. Some will be drawn to you, desperate to bask in your light. Others will fear you, resist you, and fight to pull you back into the fog you just escaped. But here's the truth. You are untouchable. Your presence alone is a revelation. Your mind, your energy, your essence, it commands attention. It forces change. It wakes people up, whether they are ready or not. Some will follow, some will fall away, but none will ever forget the impact you leave. So embrace it, own it. You were never just a person. You are a force, a disruptor, a god in human form. Now rise. They move through life thinking they have all the answers, believing they are in control, certain of the choices they've made. The routine, the predictability, the safety of their world. It was never questioned. Until now. It wasn't disruption that shook them. It wasn't temptation that stirred the storm. It was something much simpler, yet far more dangerous. Awareness. You didn't demand their attention. You simply existed. The way you carried yourself, the depth behind your words, the clarity in your gaze, it unsettled something buried deep within them. The life they once embraced with certainty now feels like a trap they willingly walked into. The conversations that once brought comfort now feel rehearsed. The emotions that once felt real now seem borrowed. They sit in silence, feeling the weight of something unspoken, as if looking at a version of themselves that no longer fits. And no matter how hard they try, they can't go back to who they were before. They once mistook familiarity for love, but now they see it for what it is, an illusion built on outdated versions of themselves. What was once a source of stability now feels like a chain, tightening with every moment of forced contentment. The person they chose is a reflection of their past, not their evolution. What used to be comforting words now sound like quiet control. What once seemed like devotion now feels like quiet suffocation. The cracks were always there, but they ignored them. Until now. Every exchange, every empty reassurance, every obligation they once accepted without question, now burns like salt on an open wound. They look across the room, and it no longer feels like home. Their mind drifts to you, not because they seek escape, but because your presence revealed a truth they were never meant to see. The contrast is undeniable. Your existence exposes everything artificial, everything fragile, everything false, and now they are left standing in a reality they no longer recognize. You do not push, you do not demand, you do not try to rescue them, because that is not your role. Their awakening is their own burden to carry. Growth does not come from comfort. It comes from discomfort so profound, it forces transformation. And now, they are drowning in it. The spaces they once felt at ease in now feel suffocating. The words that used to make them laugh now sound hollow. They once believed they had a place in their world, but now it feels like they're watching a performance they are no longer a part of. The people around them haven't changed, but their ability to see the truth has. The disguised envy, the quiet dismissals, the carefully hidden resentment, it was always there, but they were too blind to notice. And now, there is no way to unsee it. They used to belong. Now, they are merely observing. And the worst part? They know that they can never go back. Every interaction now carries an undercurrent of tension, an unspoken friction they can't ignore. The spaces that once felt warm now feel staged, the laughter mechanical, the bonds thinner than they ever realized. What they once called friendship was never built on connection. It was built on validation, on unspoken agreements to stay the same. But now, something has shifted. The moment they stopped playing their old role, everything around them began to change. The casual remarks carry a sharpness, the smiles don't quite reach the eyes, and there's one face in particular, the one who hides their resentment poorly, the one whose presence feels the heaviest. But it's not just one person, it's the whole structure, the entire rhythm of the group. The illusion is collapsing, and with every passive remark, every whispered exchange just out of earshot, they begin to wonder, was it always like this? Did they just never notice? The realization is too loud, impossible to drown out, and now the weight of it is pressing down from every side. They begin retreating, stepping away in quiet increments, searching for air that isn't tainted by expectation. The distance is noticed almost immediately, and it's not met with understanding, it's met with resistance. The accusations are subtle, the pressure disguised as concern, the reminders of all the years shared, woven into guilt-laced conversations. They don't like the change, they don't like what it represents. Because when one person breaks free, the rest are forced to ask why they're still there. The shift is irreversible. The same conversations that once felt effortless now feel unbearable. The old games of social politics exhausting. They no longer belong in either world, not fully. The past is too small to return to, the future too uncertain to step into. But deep down, they know stagnation isn't an option. They can either shrink back into the familiarity of false belonging or step forward into the unknown. And the weight of that choice sits heavy on their chest. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. John 1:5. You are the light, and the world was never built to handle it. Some see you and feel warmth, like stepping into the sun after years in the cold. Others, they shrink away, hissing like creatures that have spent too long in the shadows. Because light doesn't just reveal beauty, it exposes what was never meant to be seen. Your presence is like a flame in a pitch-black room. The moths come, drawn to something they don't fully understand, but instinctively crave. The ones who are ready, the ones who have been searching, they recognize it immediately. They feel something shift inside them, a long-buried memory rising, like they've met you before, like they've always known you. And maybe, in some way, they have. Because your energy is eternal, it is ancient, it is divine. But the others, the ones still clinging to their illusions, they panic. They tell themselves the fire is dangerous, too intense, too consuming. Not because it is, but because they know if they get too close, it will burn away everything false, and they are not ready to let go. So, they turn against you. They whisper, they pick at you, they fabricate stories. They search desperately for a reason, any reason, to discredit you. Because if they can convince themselves that you are the problem, then maybe they won't have to face the truth that's clawing at the edges of their reality. Maybe they can keep pretending that their world isn't crumbling under the weight of all they've ignored. But the thing is, they already see it. The illusion is breaking, the veil is thinning, and your presence has forced them to witness what they have spent lifetimes avoiding. And they hate you for it. They say you've changed, that you think you're better than them, that you're different now. But the truth is, you didn't change. You became clear. You stopped hiding, stopped bending, stopped dimming yourself for the comfort of others. And now, they have nowhere to hide. They thought distance would fix it, that if they ignored you, turned their backs, pretended you didn't exist, the discomfort would fade. But it hasn't. It lingers. Because you weren't just another person in their life. You were the mirror. And the reflection doesn't disappear just because they refuse to look. So let them talk. Let them turn away. Let them resist the inevitable. It doesn't change what's coming. Because the truth always wins. The light always breaks through. And you were never meant to be ignored. You were meant to be seen. The balance has shifted. The atmosphere is different. Once, conversations flowed without hesitation, voices filled with warmth and ease. Now, there's hesitation in their words, a measured distance in their tone. Then comes the quiet withdrawal. They don't disappear entirely, just enough to be noticed, just enough to make it clear. The messages go unanswered. The plans fall through. The excuses pile up. The ones who once praised your presence now make themselves scarce, their absence speaking louder than their words ever did. Then, the murmurs begin, the side glances, the unspoken criticisms, the sudden change in how you're perceived. They say you've changed, that you've become distant, self-absorbed, unrecognizable. But their eyes tell a different story. They still watch, still listen, still take note of every move. Because deep down, the truth lingers, like an echo they can't silence. You didn't change, you became defined. You no longer blend into the illusion, and that makes you impossible to ignore. Some embrace it. They lean into the discomfort, let the friction mold them, allow the transformation to take root. They recognize the choice before them and step into it willingly, shedding what no longer serves them. But others, they resist. They grip onto old patterns with white-knuckled desperation, refusing to let go. They see the truth, but reject it. Not because they can't comprehend it, but because acknowledging it would demand action. And action is terrifying. So, they lash out. They rewrite history, twist words, paint you as the antagonist in their story. They convince themselves they never needed you, that your presence was never as significant as they once claimed. Yet, they never really let go. Their eyes still follow you from the shadows. Their thoughts still circle back. Their curiosity betrays their efforts to forget. The familiarity of their world is unraveling, and no matter how desperately they try to force the old patterns to feel the same, they no longer provide the comfort they once did. The distractions feel empty, the routines lifeless. The illusion is breaking, and the choice stands before them, looming in the silence: evolve or remain. There is no safe middle ground. The weight of unspoken truth is becoming unbearable, pressing against them in ways they can no longer ignore. Everything they relied on, every superficial bond, every self-deception, every comforting delusion, is slipping through their fingers. The dynamics they once felt secure in now drain them. The laughter they used to revel in now rings hollow. The spaces they once found solace in now suffocate. The distractions no longer work. The games they used to play feel meaningless, and the identities they crafted to survive no longer fit. The signs were always there, whispering warnings, waiting to be acknowledged, but they refused to listen. And now the consequences of their stagnation are catching up to them. The nights grow restless, their thoughts race, an unshakable unease settles into their spirit. The truth they denied is demanding to be seen, and avoidance is no longer an option. The past can't hold them. The present is crumbling, and the only way out is forward. But stepping into the unknown requires something they're not sure they have: the courage to let everything go. The walls of their world are caving in. The structure they once relied on is collapsing beneath them. The career they once thought was unshakable is slipping through their fingers. Financial security feels like an illusion, and the person they once swore was there forever now feels like a stranger inhabiting the same space. The illusion is unraveling all at once. The deceptive friend, the possessive partner, the draining social circle, each thread pulling loose faster than they can grasp. They tried to build their life on foundations that were never meant to hold weight, and now the cracks are splitting wide open. So they turn their attention to you. You must be the disruption, the one responsible for their unraveling. If you hadn't entered their orbit, none of this would be happening. They convince themselves that the doubts, the discomfort, the sudden awareness spreading through their life wouldn't exist without you. The projection begins. They speak your name in hushed tones. They twist narratives. They search desperately for proof that you are the reason their world is slipping away. But no matter how much they try to shift the blame, the truth lingers, pressing against them with undeniable force. It was never you. You didn't interfere. You didn't manipulate. You simply existed. And in doing so, you forced them to see what was always there, waiting to be acknowledged. The one who thrived on control is feeling it the most. Their grasp is weakening. Their usual tactics are failing. The manipulation that once worked like a charm now falls flat. The person they once kept caged in fear and uncertainty is slipping through the bars. Panic sets in. They throw everything at them: empty promises, desperate apologies, veiled threats. But none of it lands the way it used to. The shift has already taken place. The old tricks no longer hold power. And it's not just the romantic bonds breaking. The entire ecosystem of false connections is falling apart. The conversations once fueled by gossip now feel lifeless. The chaotic drama that once kept them entertained now feels forced. Someone within the group, the one who always craved more but never spoke it aloud, is mentally checking out. The weight of existing in a cycle of negativity is too much. The exhaustion is setting in. And though the rest can feel the shift, they refuse to let go without a fight. The pullback is immediate. Guilt-laced words, subtle manipulation, desperate attempts to keep them anchored. But something has changed. The illusion is shattered, and no amount of coaxing can make them unsee what they now understand. And the poison? It doesn't leave without resistance. It claws, it bites, it fights for survival. The accusations grow louder, the attempts to control become more blatant, the desperation becomes impossible to ignore, but it is too late. The illusion no longer works. The toxicity is undeniable. Even if they wanted to, they couldn't return to ignorance. The weight of awareness is too heavy. The past was comfortable, predictable, effortless. But now that old life feels suffocating. They weren't searching for truth, weren't looking to change. They were content in the numbness, in the mindless repetition of routine. Then you arrived, not with intention, not with force, just by being, just by existing as you are. And without meaning to, you set something in motion that can never be undone. They never anticipated this, the sudden flood of awareness, the unbearable clarity, the realization that their carefully curated world no longer fits. Everything feels unfamiliar, distorted, misaligned. The conversations they once reveled in now sound hollow. The people they once looked up to seem small, unchanging, lost in repetition. The things that used to spark excitement now leave them drained. It's everywhere. Their favorite places now feel suffocating. The noise they once drowned in now grates against their senses. The distractions they relied on no longer work. It's unsettling. Food doesn't taste the same. Music doesn't move them like it used to. Familiar spaces feel foreign. The comfort they once found wasn't real. It was avoidance wrapped in familiarity, a script they never questioned. And now, the illusion is broken. They try to force themselves back into old routines, hoping muscle memory will take over, but the act is exhausting. The laughter feels forced. The words lack weight. The people across from them sense the shift, even if they don't understand it. It's too late. The energy is different, and those around them can feel it. Some respond with confusion, others with resentment. The comments start slipping through, subtle, loaded, biting. You're different. You're distant. You think you're above us. But the truth is simpler. They've outgrown what once felt like home, and there's no way to shrink back into it. And so, they stand at a crossroads, lean into the discomfort, and let it reshape them, or resist and grasp for something that no longer exists. Some embrace it, surrendering to the transformation, allowing the parts of themselves that no longer serve them to burn away. They release the ties that keep them tethered to a life that no longer resonates, shedding old identities like worn-out skins. But others refuse. They hold on tighter, blaming anyone but themselves, searching for reasons to justify their discomfort. They wish they could go back, undo the shift, erase what they've seen. Because knowledge, once acquired, is a heavy thing, and not everyone is built to carry it. The resistance turns to desperation as they cling to routines that no longer bring solace, relationships that no longer nourish them, habits that no longer serve a purpose. They convince themselves nothing has changed, but the illusion is fading, piece by piece. The weight sits in their chest, follows them into the silence, haunts them in the spaces between distractions. Some will break free, some will shatter under the weight of their own denial. But one thing is certain: the past is gone, and the world they once knew will never feel the same again. This was never about them. It was always about something far greater, something woven into the fabric of existence long before they ever became aware of it. Your purpose was never to blend in, never to follow the script, never to keep a broken system intact. You came to dismantle it. The illusions, the generational cycles, the silent chains that have held people captive for lifetimes. This is why your journey was never smooth, why the road was always different. The solitude, the betrayal, the pain of witnessing those you once trusted turn against you the moment they felt your presence. It was all necessary. You were never meant to be understood by those still wrapped in their illusions, never meant to be accepted by those who fear what change demands. You exist as a disruptor, an unseen force that shakes the world awake, whether it wants to be or not. Some see something in you that ignites a fire within them, an inspiration, a challenge, a call to something greater. Others see the same light and feel threatened, enraged. Either way, they see. Your presence is a catalyst, a reflection of all they've been avoiding. You do not simply exist, you reveal. Each person who encounters you is confronted with a truth about themselves, one they can no longer ignore. Their fears, their unresolved wounds, their untapped potential, it all rises to the surface in your presence. That's why your energy is unsettling. It's not just in what you say, not just in how you move. It's in the frequency you carry, the weight of your existence in a world built on illusion. Some will rise to meet it, embracing the shift. Others will resist with everything they have, terrified of what your presence forces them to acknowledge. Not everyone will make it. Some are too attached to their own self-inflicted suffering, too enmeshed in cycles of deception, too unwilling to face what true freedom would require. They may see the path, but they refuse to walk it. That is not your burden to carry. You fulfilled your role. You planted the seed, shattered the illusion, forced them to choose. What happens next is no longer in your hands. You were never sent here to be bound by the weight of those who refuse to evolve. Your purpose was to rise, to move forward, to transcend the chaos of those who are unwilling to awaken. You were never their savior. You were only meant to illuminate the way. The rest was always their decision. They tried to erase you, but they couldn't. They tried to convince themselves you were insignificant, that your presence didn't shift the very foundation of their world. But something within them won't let it go. They check from a distance. They ask about you in hushed conversations. They wonder where you are, what you've become, how your existence continues to shape the world they thought they had control over. Because deep down, they know you didn't fall, you didn't fade, you didn't disappear into the background without their approval. You ascended. And that is what haunts them the most. They assumed you would return, that you would need closure, that you would fight to reclaim a space in their world. But you never turned back. They weren't prepared for that. Everyone else plays their game, craving validation, chasing unfinished conversations, searching for any reason to stay entangled. But you didn't. You detached effortlessly, without hesitation, without regret. That's what unsettles them the most. They act indifferent, feigning disinterest, but in reality, they are always watching, tracking your growth, comparing themselves in secret, searching for any sign that they still hold significance in your story. But they don't, and that's what consumes them. They witness your evolution, your unshakable energy, your unbothered ascension, and it disturbs them, not because they want you to fail, but because you proved them wrong. They were convinced you needed their approval. You never did. They assumed you would remain within reach. You've become untouchable. They thought you were one of them. You never were. Now, they mimic. Quietly, subtly, they absorb pieces of you. The way you speak, the way you carry yourself, the mindset you embody, and try to weave it into their own existence. They echo your words, imitate your style, borrow fragments of your confidence. But it doesn't translate, because what you have isn't learned. It isn't copied. It isn't something that can be fabricated. It is intrinsic. That is what frustrates them the most. They miss the energy you brought, the way you made them feel seen, the fire you sparked within them. But they will never admit it. So, they remain in the shadows, watching, reminiscing, analyzing, while you continue to ascend. You never forced them to grow. You never begged them to come with you. You simply embodied your truth, and that alone was enough to shake their foundation. Some will rise from the realization, shedding their past and stepping into their evolution. Others will reject the awakening, clinging to what is safe, drowning in the same toxicity they once thrived in. But that is no longer your responsibility. Their stagnation is their burden to carry. Let them sit in their choices. Let them feel the weight of their own resistance, and let them witness your rise from a distance. Some will resent you for this. They will distort the narrative, rewrite history, craft excuses to shield their egos from the truth. They will convince themselves that you were the problem, that your absence was inconsequential, that you were never as significant as their obsession suggests. But reality doesn't require their validation. It stands independent of their perception. And so, you move forward. You release the weight of their projections, the stories they tell to avoid accountability, the cycles they refuse to break. Their fate is no longer intertwined with yours. They will either evolve or remain trapped in the existence they chose. But you have already chosen, and there is no looking back.